Welcome, Buff fans, to another edition of the Primetime Night Owls podcast. The Primetime Night Owls podcast, and but we're doing this on a Saturday, like at noon, Matt. So we're not really
Yeah.
night owls right now. But we're going to get into a lot of stuff as the Buffs wrap up week 3 of preseason camp, and you know, uh, there wasn't a lot media wise this last week. I mean, specialists and tight ends, and there's always some interesting things that comes out of that. But let's start with something that you're currently watching. You watch NFL stuff more than I do, for
Yeah.
sure. And this is going on as we're doing this. The Cleveland Browns are playing the Philadelphia Eagles in a preseason game. We know that Shedeur Sanders is out this week. He had an oblique injury. We talked about it last week how good Shedeur looked in that first game, throwing a couple
Yeah.
touchdown passes. But you're watching Dillon Gabriel right now, and from everything I looked at social media, like right before we started this, I saw the clip of him throwing the pick six. But
Mm.
people were saying he was playing really well up to that point. Talk about what you're seeing as you're watching this live as we're doing this.
Yeah, and this is something that I've talked about dating back to the start really of last Heisman season when Gabriel and Shador were kind of being compared, side by
Yeah.
side. And
Mhm.
I feel incredibly confident saying exactly now what I said then, which is Gabriel is a system guy. Shador
Yeah.
is the system, right? Like there's a level to what you can do with Gabriel, and um, you need somewhat good conditions. You need, today he's out there with ones and twos, and I would say Stefanski's definitely dialing up more for those guys than he did last week. I would say it was
Yeah.
very meat and potatoes, and what Shador was able to accomplish last week, a lot of it, I think, there was a couple that came within the structure of it, but he made some stuff happen. Today, Dillon's first quarter, his first two drives for the most part were pretty spotless. Just taking his free throws, not asking him to do a ton. He had a couple of really nice completions on out routes
Mhm.
to Jamari Thrash, which again, Shador didn't really get time with Tillman or Thrash last week. They had some ones out there for Gabriel as well. And you have to remember, it's not like we're just talking about, okay, these guys are ones and twos, but maybe they're interchangeable. Cleveland's twos, threes, and fours at their wide receiver position are basically the size of running backs. Okay, with
Yeah.
Luke Floria, who got cut, and with Gage Larvidan, I mean, these guys are my height, and that's Shador throwing to them. And meanwhile, Gabriel's got some real NFL size out there. So I think he did well, and then just forced a terrible throw. It was a miscommunication between the tight end and the receiver. It should have never happened, but that's a broken play. He's got to know better. You can't make
Yeah.
mistakes like that in the NFL, and it gets housed 75 yards the other direction. And I may have gotten up and I may have given it one of these, but it's okay. I think we all understand. We all have a bias here. But then he just fumbled the exchange on a handoff too. It looked like a miscommunication with him
Mhm.
and the running back. Look, I think Gabriel is a guy that NFL teams probably look for, right? He's the most experienced college starter of all time, right? Having played at UCF, Oklahoma, and Oregon. This is a football robot who's going to go out there and operate typically within the structure of the system.
Yeah.
Shador's looking to make some more plays outside the structure of the system. So I would say, if you're talking about in practice and drills and stuff like that, if you're just looking for the execution of the offense, then maybe you're probably going to be a little bit more comfortable with a guy like Gabriel because you probably expect him to do exactly what you tell him to do. A guy
Yeah.
like Shador is going to look he's got different vision, right? He's got vision beyond what he's seeing right now, and he can throw guys open. I would say that Gabriel is a really good sight guy. I don't know if he's necessarily much of an anticipatory thrower like Shador is. So a good first start for him. I mean, he operated the offense well. You're gonna make mistakes. What it really showed to me is that Kenny Pickett's probably on his way out of town, right? He
Yeah.
hasn't been able to practice in a while. I mean, he's only been doing 7-on-7. I look at a team like the Jets. I look at a team like the Saints. Both those teams need quarterback help. Cleveland moved an asset for him to acquire him this offseason. I don't see a reason why they couldn't get a sixth, seventh, back end round guy, back for Pickett and
Yeah.
just rock with Gabriel and Shador because even with some, I'm just watching Gabriel over the middle here. Look, I mean, he's got a nice ball, right? He's got a tight zip on it, and um, I think that with what he's shown today, if I'm a Cleveland Brown fan, I'm looking at it, I'm going, man, first of all, I don't really even want to see Kenny Pickett. Why are we wasting time there at
Yeah.
all? And
Yeah.
the other thing is, are we really going to do Flacco? What's the point of that? Like, are we just going to get off to a decent start within the first 4 weeks, feel comfortable? But based upon what I've seen the first 2 weeks preseason wise out of Gabriel and Shedeur, I'd feel very confident if I were Cleveland, who has, by the way, 2 first-round draft picks next year early,
Yeah,
going, this is a developmental year. I mean, they're not going to be good anyway. Maybe
yeah,
they kind of get off to a start where you say, okay, here's Flacco, give the veteran guys a chance, maybe win a couple of games, but at the same time, any games they win is, beyond developmentally is a mistake this year for Cleveland. That's just
yeah.
unfortunately how
Well,
the NFL works.
yeah, and Flacco, I mean, he's a guy that hasn't played more than 9 games in several years. And
Right.
so, to me, it makes sense to roll with him going out of the gates while these other guys get a little more comfortable. I agree with you on, Gabriel to me seems like a guy, he's going to be in the NFL for a while because you're right. He's that guy that, coaches tend to like their systems. And,
Right.
Gabriel's a guy that will learn the system. And, he can be, even if he's a backup for a dozen years, a Coy Detmer, right? I mean, Coy Detmer
Sure.
played at CU, had a long NFL career, but he didn't play a whole lot. But he
Chase
was
Daniel.
with Chase Daniel. I think Dillon looks like he could be that type of guy, and so it'll be interesting to see how that quarterback competition shakes out. I agree with you, Kenny Pickett. Like, what are they doing with that one? I mean, just move on from that one. Go with Joe and the kids, and see what happens this year.
And
That's
why
what I
not?
would do. That's what I would do.
Yeah, I don't really see a downside to it. I think
Yeah,
all things considered, that first quarter couldn't have gone any better for Gabriel, as somebody who wasn't even watching to root for him. I mean, he looked good. So
yeah,
if I were Cleveland, I'd feel pretty confident with those two guys and Flacco, and then I'd be looking to move Pickett. I heard Mary Kay Cabot say there's a good chance they keep four. I mean, that's just bad football
yeah.
roster construction,
Right.
period. I mean, you just can't. You
What's the
need
point?
too many linemen, you need too many receivers. I mean, it doesn't make any sense. So I think eventually they'll whittle it down to the two rookies and Flacco, and we'll see what happens from there. Shedeur
Yeah.
probably still is third on the depth chart, this upcoming week. We'll see if he can play
Mhm.
in week 3. There's some optimism, it sounds like, that he can play. Somebody said to me the other day, it sounds like he wants to play. I'm like, yeah, of course Shedeur wants to play. Are you kidding
Right.
me? I mean, Shadeur's ready for smoke anytime.
Right.
He's ready for action anytime. So it doesn't surprise me. Again, I think, coming off of the performance he had last week, outside of the first quarter today and maybe a couple of these throws, I mean, Gabriel hasn't looked bad. So
Yeah.
if I were them, I'd feel pretty confident into week 3 of the preseason, just ruling Kenny Pickett out, really, and just giving him whatever scraps come
Yeah.
along and move forward with those 3.
Yeah. And keeping four is dumb. There's
It
always
is.
going to be a Tyler Huntley type that's out there ready to be signed if you need somebody. So let's transition that to yeah, get your arm ready.
No, not me.
You're in no condition.
No
I'm
condition.
not one to talk, but I know you've had
No.
some like actual physical medical things you've been
Yeah.
dealing with. We don't need to get into, but
Yeah.
let's transition that to what's going on in the quarter competition here in Colorado because Shedeur's replacement. We're still trying to figure that out, and well, we think we figured it out, Matt, because
Yeah.
the Buffs have not named a starting quarterback, but as we watch. We obviously don't watch practice. The media doesn't get to get in there and watch practice, but we watch well off media, and I know that it's edited. Watching well off and reach the people, but it's clear to me, Matt. This is Caden Salter's offense, and
Yeah.
he is the guy for the time being. I would be absolutely stunned if he's not the quarterback August 29th against Georgia Tech.
Yeah, me too. Me too. And we talked about this all summer. I mean, Juju's 17. I mean, he's not even
Yeah,
18 yet. And it was going to have to be so clear and obvious that he was the right option, which would have
hmm
required even more regression from Salter, which wouldn't have made sense. I mean,
right.
there's a huge opportunity with the best players around him that he's ever been around. So I'm glad to see in week 3, I think from a leadership perspective, as well as just a pure rep standpoint. I mean, Caden, you and I, I've spoken about it many times, has been the only one so far that we've seen get reps with that first team offensive line and
Yeah,
no reps
there,
with the
yeah,
second team.
There's been a couple times I've seen like Juju with the first team offensive line,
Right.
but yeah, I think to your point, like, I've never seen Caden with the second team
100%,
offense.
right? And it's
So
more been the other way. That's why I say,
yeah,
like,
yeah,
he's the
yeah,
only one that's
Mhm.
gotten reps with the first team and not with the second O line, from what we
Yeah,
can tell. And
yeah,
the other way with Juju, maybe he's gotten a couple
mhm,
sprinkles here and there, but it's been primarily twos.
yeah,
And this is what we expected. So it's really not that much of a surprise. But The most encouraging part for me is what we talked about when we broke down fall camp, and it was my biggest question, which is this offense. And would they truly sculpt it around what his strengths are going to be? Because doing that essentially involves a facelift of what they've been doing offensively. And
Yeah.
so far, I think they've really been doing that. You're seeing a lot of tight
Yep.
ends on the field, a
Hmm.
lot of 11, a lot of 12. I think formationally, they're doing a lot of stuff differently. And I think they're going to give Caden Salter complete freedom really this year to tuck and go whenever he sees fit. Because as
Yeah.
you and I have brought up before, I think that's one of their best offensive weapons moving into
Yep.
2025.
Yeah, and again, I know it's edited stuff, but like watching well off, I mean, there's been several clips, especially this last week. I thought this last week's footage, I thought was the best I've seen Caden look, and I think he's looked
Yeah.
good all camp. But like, there's been several plays where you'll see him take off and run. You're like, ooh, okay, that looks good. And I know he can't get hit, but like he's taking off in like misdirection where there's huge holes, where there's nobody to hit him anyway. And so I think he's looked good there. He's thrown some balls lately too, I think, Matt, that are like, wow, okay. He's got some zip on it. He threw one the other day. I can't remember who caught it, but he was kind of, it was almost Shedeur like. He was rolling to his left and kind of threw it back.
I
Not
think it
all the
was
way back, right?
Mathis. I think it was Mathis
Was
who
it? Yeah, I think you're
in the
right.
back of the end zone. Yeah.
Yes. Yeah, I think that's the
Yeah.
same play. And it wasn't, I mean, it was like rolling to his left, but threw and straight down the field. And it was not quite like the Baylor play with Shedeur.
No, no.
But it was one of those athletic throws. You're like, wow, that's a big time throw there. The one thing about Juju is everybody is saying there's no question this kid has talent, and there's an unbelievable amount of talent there. But even tight end Zach Atkins this week, he was asked about the quarterbacks, and he goes, "Yeah, Salter's clearly the vet. Juju's got a lot to learn, but there's a lot of talent." So that's
Yeah.
the message I keep hearing about Juju is there's so much talent, but there's a lot to learn. I think Juju's not quite there, and I think Salter is, and so I would not be surprised to see Juju at some point this year, even if Salter's not hurt. But I think that to me, it's clear that this is Caden Salter's offense.
It absolutely is, especially the way that they're constructing it right now. And the other big question that you and I have had that ties in directly to that is how much they're actually going to be committed to running the football this year.
Yeah,
We talked about having the running quarterback and having what appears to be an upgraded offensive line, at least on paper and in practice so far. That should make a difference. Now, again, that running back room, there's a lot on those guys to prove that they can get it done on the field this year as well. Although having a little bit more misdirection, the window dressing, maybe some bigger holes, and another second to get to the edge because of a little bit of defensive confusion, I think should
yeah,
help those guys as well. But it does appear that the building blocks are being put in place to develop that this year, where I think they talked about it a lot the last two seasons. Like I was even watching
yeah,
a clip of Shedeur and Trav playing college football 25 the other day. It popped up on my feed where they were in Travis's house and just messed around, and Shedeur was like, "We're gonna run the ball a lot this year. That's what we're gonna do." And I was like, "Okay, well, it didn't really pan out
yeah,
like that." But
yeah.
this year, I don't think they have a choice, and we heard it as much from Coach Prime at Media Day, and we spoke about it yesterday,
Mhm.
last week on our previous episode, that this will be a different offense. They don't
Yeah,
have a choice. And
right.
if you want to do things the best way for this season, for this group of guys, you have to lean into all of that other stuff that they didn't quite get to offensively, quite
Yeah.
frankly. And I think we all understand the pre-snap motion, right? Formational
Hmm.
variety, versatility, all that different stuff. And I think they are better suited to do it, to use Pat Shermer's words, because Brian, this is the first time they've had two tight ends that they could actually put on the field and be comfortable with alone. I know
Right.
Coach Bartoloni
Hmm.
said this week they want three, but this is also part of the reason why heading into the year, I said, okay, I'm a little confused about what their approach was, and I wasn't 100% convinced they were going to do it this way, because running back and tight end are the two positions on the team that I don't even think you can make an argument they've invested the least in. And
Right.
if you're going to
Yep.
go this style, those guys are going to be on the field a lot. And
Right.
so you've got a huge developmental year from a first-time position coach in Marshall Falk, and with Brett Bartoloni coaching the tight ends. A lot is on those two rooms, and everybody and all the coaches and sports staff to get those guys developed, because they're going to need a lot of those guys to play this year if they want to successfully and efficiently run the type of offense that I think will allow them to probably maximize what they have on the field.
Yeah. And not saying these guys can't play well, but when you talk about investing in the tight end position. I mean, their top tight ends right now are a guy that last year was on defense and wasn't playing, and they said, "Hey, come over and play tight
Right.
end." And then they go and get a Division two tight end in Zach Atkins. A couple high school kids. They done some recruiting and then some walk-ons, and so that's your tight end room. And again, not that these guys can't play well. I think Zach Atkins can be very good for this offense. I think Savell Smalls, we talked to both those guys this week, that I think Savell is a more developed tight end this year, and he's going to be better. The other one, Brady Kopetz, the walk-on, has been running with the ones a little bit too. So I think they do have three guys that they're starting to feel comfortable with there. I still go back sometimes, though, to the comment that Coach Prime made at Media Day last week when he's like, if they don't do it, I'll put another offensive lineman out there. You
Well, I
know?
mean, they showed us that in year one when Hank
Yeah.
Zelinskis was used as the tackle eligible tight end, right? I
Mhm.
mean, that was the solution they went to try and run the football at the back half of 2023
Yeah.
before in 2024 Savell Smalls was able, to play 20 snaps a game and they were able to get into 11 personnel
Mhm.
and run Isaiah Gustive, but that is a huge part of this season, and it harkens back to something that Coach Prime said in 2023 when we talked to him about the tight end position. He's like, "Look, we've got better players at receiver. I'd rather have them out there." I think
Yeah.
you could make the argument they have better players at receiver still, but those guys aren't out there over the tight ends almost,
Right.
every
Mhm.
play that I'm seeing. And the reason for that is because they are doing things differently. So that's a huge sign of encouragement for me moving into the year that this is going to be more of a ball control offense. I think you're going to string together drives. It's going to be much more of a rhythmic offense.
Mhm.
I'm not sure that they're going to be as proficient at coming from behind. I think multiple score deficits are going to be really hard for them to dig out of this year.
Yep.
Not that they're not normally, but when you have players like Trav and you've got a quarterback like Shedeur, you can
You can
do
do it
some of
quickly.
those things.
Yeah.
Right.
Mhm. So yesterday at the kickoff luncheon, Pat Shermer was up on the stage and he made a comment that last year Hawaii was the only team in the country that did more 10 personnel than Colorado. So I want to ask you, what percentage? I don't think that's going to be the case this year.
Yeah, me neither.
What percentage of the time do you think there's at least one tight end on the field for Colorado?
That's a really good question. If you're in a true RPO, at I want to say 50%, like close to. I
Okay.
mean, if you're really going to
Yeah.
run a real RPO, I don't know. I mean, it's got to be at least 40 plus. If you're going to do it
Yeah.
right, how much are they
Mhm.
going to do it? I don't know. But based upon what we've seen in camp, I think that's pretty accurate. I
You
mean,
think they'll
Zach
you think they'll
Atkins,
go 10 personnel half the time?
I mean, they were how I wonder what the percentage was last year. It had to be over 70% in 10
Yeah, I would think
personnel
so.
at a minimum, or maybe even higher than that,
I would
honestly.
lean heavier, like a 60-40,
It's possible.
60% of the time you got a tight end on the field.
And I think that's a really good point. And the reason why I kind of hedge my bets is compared to what it's been, it's going to be such a drastic change, right? Over to
Right.
2025
Yeah.
that, like, are they really going to go that heavy on it? And it depends upon
It's hard to
injuries.
project that high of a percentage, right?
It really
Yeah.
is hard to project
Yeah.
that big of a difference. I
Yeah.
think it will become at least 50%. If you want to
Yeah.
really run the football, think about that. I mean, that's not even that much. You know what I'm
Yeah.
saying?
Hmm.
And I think the other part of it is how well Caden develops as a thrower as the year goes along. Because
Yeah.
if you get more confident in Caden's ability to throw, even without a tight end on the field, even in 10, you can do a lot of stuff in the quick game too, a lot of quick screens, which
Hmm.
again, that is the part of the offense that from last year they had to rely upon so much to move the ball was the quick game, the quick screens, the quick throws. That's still going to be in the offense a ton. And
Yeah.
if they can develop that along with the running game, which really is how you build that, that trident of the RPO, right? Where you've got
Yeah.
that option to do a little bit of everything. That's how you keep defenses the most honest. And I do believe it comes down to how well Smalls and Atkins are able to hold up in blocking situations, how well they're able to execute their assignments that will dictate their playing time and how Colorado chooses to go. Because,
Yeah.
if those guys aren't getting it done, then why are we trying this? So I think early
Yeah.
on, you'll probably see a lot of it. and they're going to give it a shot, which this is what have been asking them to do. This is
Yeah.
how you have to approach this year. It's not controversial. It's not a hot take. If you want to run the RPO, you need bigger personnel on the field. You
Hmm.
need more formational variety. And when you have a tight end that can block and can catch, it makes a defense play more honest, right? So you're
Yeah.
going to, as Brett Bartoloni said the other day, get more vanilla looks defensively and not allow defenses to key in certain areas because they don't
Right.
know what to be ready for.
And I think a lot of that is on Zach Atkins. I mean,
Yeah.
they also talked about this week, he's still developing as a blocker. I mean, he's a willing blocker. He's still developing that aspect. He's a former receiver. He
Right.
can clearly catch the ball, stretch the defense a little bit with that ability. But if he's not a very good blocker, defenses are going to figure that out. And when he's on the field, they're going to know that's a receiver.
Right.
And if Savell Smalls, we saw him catch the ball every now and then last year. He's got to develop more as a receiver. Otherwise, it's going to be clear when he's on the field. Oh, they're running, and he's a blocker. So those two
Yeah.
guys, how they develop too, I think is going to be a huge deal. And we don't hear about Kopets a lot, so I don't know where he is on those two things. But those two tight ends, they've got to be versatile, and it's got to be to the point that like the defenses don't know is Savell Smalls a receiving threat on this play.
100%.
Is Zach Atkins just going to block on this play? So they've got to be able to do both those things. And so that's going to be interesting to see how those guys develop as well.
And Bartoloni also talked about, I mean, you talked about some of those walk-ons. Somebody's got to step up because if one of those guys gets dinged up or has to
Yeah.
miss some time, somebody else has to play for them to really get to the full arsenal of what they're gonna want to do and what they're gonna need to do, I think, to win football games this year. And again, it doesn't mean that they don't have plenty of talent in the outside and they're not going to be able to move the ball that way either. I just think the ground element and the deception element this year is the number one priority to what
Yeah.
they do on a week
Mhm.
to week basis offensively, regardless of matchup. Like that's one of those things where we talk, where you always hear football players and coaches say, "Look, we're just going to focus on what we do. We're just going to focus on our stuff."
Yeah.
Their stuff this year is being physical at the point of attack, line of scrimmage, and running the football, and then everything else I think will evolve from there offensively for them. And
Yeah.
look, it's got to start week one because Georgia Tech
Right.
is no slouch.
Right.
I know that there's a lot of people that because of the success CU's had early the last 2 years are like pretty jazzed up and pretty confident heading into that one. Georgia Tech's a good team.
Yeah.
That's an experienced team that really runs the football. And that's going to be a ball control offense. So you're going to see a very similar play style, I think, but from a
Mhm.
team that's actually more well versed at it and more experienced at doing it and might actually be better suited to play
Right.
that way early. So Colorado's really going to have to be sharp here the next 2 weeks.
Yeah. That can be like a 17-14 game with just a knockdown, drag it out.
It could be.
No,
Maybe like 27,
yeah.
24 or something like that.
Yeah.
Like I could
Yeah.
see it being really tight.
Yeah, I was joking 17-14. It's not gonna be that low scoring, but
No.
let's stick with that run game and transition a little bit to a couple of key injuries because there's a couple key guys that are out right now that impact that offense in the run game. And let's start with uh, Dallan Hayden. I don't know what's going on with him, but we have not seen him the last few days in
Yeah,
well
I
off,
noticed
and
that.
um, that's a concern. I think Dallan was looking really good first couple weeks of camp. I don't know his deal, so I can't say whether he's out for a while or whatever. But
Yeah.
he hasn't been out there. I think DeKalen Taylor's looked really good. I think Micah Welch has looked really good. But if you don't have Dallan Hayden, like right now, it's 3 scholarship running backs, Matt. I mean, that's you can get away with that in the NFL, right? Because you got some practice squad guys. 3 scholarship running backs. That, it's a good thing you have a running quarterback.
And this is what we talked about all summer. They're very thin at that room, and
Mhm.
our questions are about the talent in that room already. And you're thin, so hopefully Dallin comes back to practice like next week. I mean, and then
Yeah.
their problems would be solved. But outside of that, again, huge opportunity for Simeon Price, who looks like he's
Yep.
running hard in practice. But again, another guy who really hasn't proven it on the field in his career so far, and he's going to need to. You got Micah Welch, who's also been dinged up. And we talked
Mhm.
about Dallin and Micah heading into the year, even before camp. These are guys who missed the better parts of last season, I would say. Like
Yeah.
combined, they probably missed a full season of games, right? If you were
I
to
don't know if I don't think they missed that many games, but they were not healthy for a lot of games. They may have been out there.
Okay. Yeah, no, that's a
You know
good
what I
point.
mean?
Yeah, no, that's a good
I
point.
think I think they together they missed maybe 5, 6 games, but they were not healthy for a lot of them.
That's true. And they were kind of overtaken by Isaiah Gustave
Yeah.
completely for the most
Yep.
part. So again, they not only need better years, but they need healthy years. And
Yeah.
Dallan being having to miss a couple of days again. Hopefully, it's not a big thing. Hopefully, it's not the ankle. I'm not reading into anything.
Yeah.
I just we'll see what it looks like this week at practice. But obviously, one of our biggest areas of concern. And the other thing we've talked about is having other versatile guys that can carry the football. But
Mhm.
from what I've seen, has Michael practiced at all this fall?
I don't think so. If he did, it was very early. He's been out for a while. Yeah.
Right. And so Draylon is clearly emerging as one of their top wide receivers. They're really not going to
Yeah.
put him back there much. That would be dumb to do that anyway.
That will be a gimmicky thing when he's back there.
100%.
Yeah.
Other than that, I mean, get Isaiah Harge ready on alert 5.
Yeah.
Like we should probably see him getting a couple of touches here in
Yep.
camp because he looks bigger. I saw he's another one of those, benefactors of the Swayze component. He definitely little Isaiah Harge looks, I saw
Right.
some definition there. So get him ready. Like this is one of those situations where let's just play a hypothetical here, and we don't want to get too far ahead of ourselves, but these are part of our concerns, and we've addressed these for months now. Like
Yeah.
if Dallin's got to miss a chunk of time, you have another injury, you got two guys.
Yeah.
I mean, like all of a sudden, you're on fumes in that running back room, and you're looking at walk-ons and maybe converted wide receivers, which is why
Yeah.
we were harping on that position all summer long. Like, why really? You're good? Like that's all you're
Yeah.
bringing in here? But here we are, and now you move forward. So hopefully Dallin will be back, and we don't have to worry about that, and we're not going to be overly panicking about any of that. But we
Yeah.
just want to address these as potential concerns moving forward
Yeah.
because more than any position on the field other than maybe linebacker, running back's like 100% injury rate. You're constantly
Right.
taking hits if you're not delivering them
Well,
at the linebacker position.
and that's the thing is, I'm not overreacting yet to Dell until we know, but like what it does is highlight what we've talked about, right? Is
Right.
that you're that close to being very thin, and
Yep.
we just mentioned Dallin and Micah were not healthy most of last year,
Right.
and so if whether it's that Dallin and DeKalen or DeKalen and Simeon are not healthy, they got an ankle that they turn in week 1, and it doesn't feel right the rest of the year because Dallin's was like week 2 or 3.
Yep.
He injures the ankle. He was never right. He came back and
No.
played. He was
Yep.
never right. Michael Welch has talked about he had hamstring issues all last year. And so what if those pop up again? So you're that close to being super thin. That's what the Dallan Hayden thing this week highlights to me is like it's okay right now in practice, but you're right. You get one more of those, and it's like, oh boy, this is not
100%.
good.
And let me add another wrinkle here. I noticed a different edge to DeKalen Taylor this week in a couple of the clips. Like I think he's been coming on and coming on,
Yeah.
but there were a couple of handoffs he took where he hit it and it looks
Yeah.
different, right? But I think back to the Dylan Edwards situation. When the secret's out on DeKalen Taylor, because eventually he'll hit one, we all know that's coming. He'll bust one, and then teams will eventually have to
Yeah.
start to prepare for him. But when the secret was out on Dillon, they really struggled to scheme other ways to get him the football because having him on the field, he was such a liability in pass protection that it was so obvious that if he's going to be on the field, I mean,
Yeah.
we're probably seeing some sort of action involving him, right? He's not going to sit back there and block, most likely. I mean, that was kind of what happened with Dylan Edwards eventually, and they just kept trying to run him between the tackles. So you tell me, what happens if you've got a smaller running back room and teams start to stack the box on you and keep Salter, try and keep him in the pocket and go, all right, let's see if you can utilize your smaller backs inside the tackles. Like, what do
Yeah.
you do then? See who's going to be forced to throw. So there are some things that I think can and will pop up most likely at some point this year that again it's early in camp still. These are just all things that as a coaching staff you have to have plans for because one of your greatest strengths as a human being alone, outside of football, is knowing what your weaknesses are and knowing what you're not good at. So
Yeah.
you either A, need to improve on, B, need to have a contingency plan for, or C, need to delegate, right?
Yeah.
And I think with this, one thing that they're not strong with is their depth in their running back room. And
Yep.
that you've got to come up with a good plan because you could easily get to, week 2 or 3 if things don't go your way and be in a really bad spot. And you want to make sure you're ready for that. So
Yeah.
I imagine they will be. And again, if Hayden has to miss time, more than what we've seen this week, he definitely missed a couple days this week, didn't he?
Yeah, I think he was there Monday. I don't know when the last time was he practiced, but
Because I even had some people going, "Hey, we're seeing a lot of reps for 26, which is Simeon Price." So we'll
yeah,
see what happens. I mean, if he has to miss much more time than that, I think it gets interesting because DeKalen and Micah are small. I mean,
yeah,
they're small guys.
yeah, yeah,
So and Simeon's not that much bigger than those guys. He's listed bigger than he actually is. So
yeah.
I'm
I would
looking
say
forward to
too.
seeing it.
I brought this up to Adam Tiger yesterday. Like they're at 104 guys on the roster, so they've got one spot. Is there somebody in the portal just sitting there, a running back? I mean, if
That's fascinating, Brian.
because
That is really interesting.
whether again we don't know this what's going on with Dallan, but whether him just being out a little bit this week, highlighting that, do you go out and say, you know what, is there another warm body out there at running back that doesn't have a school yet that we can bring in here
That's a really
and
interesting
compete?
thought. That's a really interesting thought because out of any position, that takes, I mean, yeah, you're going to have to learn protections and all that stuff. I
Yeah,
would say that's probably one of and maybe for Falk standards, you've got to get
yeah,
the details right, but it's not like it's the most complex position. You know what I mean? If
right.
you needed
Hmm.
somebody to kind of pick things up on the fly, if you had to pick a position that wasn't like kicker, you know
Yeah,
what I'm saying? Running
yeah,
back would probably be, that spot. So that's
yeah.
interesting. I don't know. I
And I mean,
imagine they'll investigate it if it's a possibility.
yeah, and frankly, any accomplished running back has probably been picked up, but
Do they have to be that accomplished at this
right.
stage? Is kind of
I
your
mean, the
point.
thing is, like, would you rather have a guy that's been playing running back, it's in the portal, or convert a wide receiver, or go to your walk-ons? So, and this is no knock on the walk-ons. I don't know how good they are, but like, I would think that if you've got a guy that's got it's sitting in the portal, I don't know what's out there, but he's got some experience, that might be a better option than what you got in the walk-ons or your converted receivers. So I just threw it out there because
Worth
they do
having the
have that.
discussion.
The roster limit is 105. They're at 104, and so there is that spot. And so um, I've been all offseason. I'm like, I think they're too thin at running back. I'd rather see one more. They got that spot. Can you go out there and do it? And remember, 2 years ago they added, who was the linebacker that was at ASU that
Mitchell.
started camp? Yeah, Juju Mitchell.
Yeah.
He's just at ASU. He got kicked off the team, and they brought him in here, and he played a little bit. He couldn't follow the rules here either. But
Yeah.
had he done that, he would have been a huge pickup for them. So
His story was wild,
yeah,
man.
his story's wild.
Yeah.
So we won't spend too
Yeah.
much on him,
No, no.
but I'm just throwing that option
Hopefully,
out there.
hopefully Hayden comes back and this becomes a moot point and everybody goes, "What were you
But
guys
either
talking
way,
about?"
like I said, even if he comes back, you still got 12 plus games to get through.
I'm with you.
I'm all for going to find another guy out there. So
If it's not another guy, it's getting one of those receivers ready, which to me it
yes,
would seem to be Harge. I mean, I think
yes.
Harge has probably got to be rotated in.
Well, we saw him at the spring game 2 years ago. He looked really good as a
He
running back.
did.
So I know it was a
And he had
spring
some
game, but
wildcat. He had some
yeah,
wildcat carries last year that
yeah,
hit. I'd like to see Isaiah get a few touches.
yeah. The other injury, there's several guys that are out, but the other main injury right now is Zy Crisler has been out this week, and
Yeah,
now he did go up and take the podium at the kickoff luncheon yesterday. He's walking around. He doesn't look like that's a long-term thing, but he's been out, a few days this week. And man, Matt, that offensive line, I was telling you, I'm watching the well-off video yesterday, and they have 17 offensive linemen on this roster. 8 of them were out yesterday. And Zy Crisler, for the first couple weeks, 2.5 weeks or whatever, they had pretty much the same 5 starting
yeah,
offensive linemen. It was pretty set who it's going to be. Well, Chrysler's been out, and you know, in his spot is Kareem Harden, who's thrown up at the end of practice yesterday. Um, and Harden, I know they like him, and he made a lot of starts last year. He's a good offensive lineman, but that's a key offensive lineman that's out right now among the 8 that were out yesterday.
yeah, 100%. I've noticed that. It seems, and there was another practice I saw where it looked like Kareem was dying too. So I don't know
On the
what's going
on the
on.
up downs.
Yeah,
Yeah,
did you see the up downs?
yeah,
That was
yeah,
like, man, I mean, compared to everybody else, including like a guy
yeah,
like Chauncey Gooden, it looked like so maybe something's going on with him health wise. I don't know, but
yeah.
hopefully he's doing all right. I mean, he did get dog of the day the very first day of fall camp. So, and
Yeah.
he's probably the most experienced returning offensive lineman that
Yeah.
this team has. I mean, quite
Well,
frankly,
Seaton.
as far as team, as far
Oh
as
yeah.
guys that have played at CU, I mean, he's played
Yeah.
here for 3 years under Coach
Right. Yeah.
Prime
Right.
now.
Yeah.
So,
Mhm.
yes, Crisler's absence is a bummer because he has been coming on as a leader of this team. And clearly, if he was injured and Coach Prime still brought him up to the podium yesterday at the
Yeah.
kickoff luncheon, that tells you what Coach Prime thinks of him and his leadership abilities, because you've got to earn something to be a face of this program. And so,
Yeah.
I anticipate whenever he gets back to healthy, which is hopefully before the opener, or and as soon as possible, he'll be back in there. But
Yeah.
this is why you went out and added all the quality depth up front that you did. And here it's already paying off to the point where, all right, you've got a bunch of guys out, including a starter,
Yeah.
all right,
Mhm.
you still have competition. Whereas maybe these last few years, it would have been plugging holes in a sinking ship to a degree where you were just trying to throw something at the wall to see what would stick, which is kind of what they ended up having to do
Yeah.
with Philip Houston at one point last year. So, we'll see. I mean, it gets interesting now because we're through the install phase. We've got one more week before game week. This is the final separation week for these kids in camp. Like, I would imagine that one of Coach Prime's messages this week would be, hey, last impression time,
Yeah.
Like, I mean, you always have a chance to make a good impression, but here's like last impression for week one time.
Yeah.
Who really wants it? Because I did notice that I thought the juice was starting to get dialed back a little bit at the tail end of this week of practice. And obviously we don't see much at all, and this is where we always hate to speculate, but I did think I was noticing the missing voices of Cam and Shiloh and Travis. Like, some of those guys just
Yeah.
generate their own juice, man, and I think this team is missing that a little bit. So
Well,
here comes this
yeah.
this next week of training camp where the vets who are here, the guys whose time it finally is, nobody should be having to manufacture that. You should be coming to the field with it because
Yeah.
there's playing time to be competed for.
Yeah. Well, I mean, to your point, Coach Prime yesterday at the luncheon said he's up on the podium and tells all the fans out there, he said, we had a little lull this last week.
Did he?
Yeah, he said he was, I, these guys can take it to another level because we had a little lull this
It
week.
looked like that.
And he mentioned kind of, we're at that kind of that point of camp where there's guys are dinged up and there's just kind of that energy needs to ramp up. I mean, he mentioned that. And so,
Okay.
you seeing that, I mean, he's seeing it too. And so,
Okay.
and going back real quick to Chrysler, my main concern is not really Chrysler, but it's those 8 guys. You talk about the
Yeah.
depth. They currently, as of yesterday, with 8 out, that's only 9. That's not enough to have 2 full offensive line units. And so you're having, the
That's a good
starters,
point.
at least one starter's having to play with the second team as well. And so
I didn't think about
I think we're seeing a lot more this last week of Cooper Lovelace is playing more center. Switching out with Zary McGill, probably in part. I don't know if it's because there's competition there or if it's, McGill's been the kind of starter that's playing with that second unit. And so he'll play guard, with the second unit, things like that. So maybe there's some of that rotation a little bit so that McGill can get those second team reps as well. But yeah, you don't even have enough for 2 units. And, early in camp, you had 3 full units. And so that's my bigger concern is that depth on the offensive line. But yeah, they are at that point of camp, Matt, where it's like, all right, let's just get through this. And, this week was kind of that middle of the camp, like, I think it was Coach Livingston said, he goes, look, we're that game is too
Yeah.
far away right now,
Uh-huh.
and the start and all the summer stuff was long gone.
Right.
We got to get through all this right now. And so, but I think we're now less than 2 weeks away from a game. And you're right. This next week, it's all right. The depth chart's gonna be made this
Yes.
week.
Yes.
So,
Yes. The Sharpie comes out. The
yeah,
Sharpie comes everything that's in pen and pencil right now,
yeah,
it gets Sharpied for week one, and then we
yes.
move from there. But this is your final week.
Jobs are won this coming week, and so
100%.
I would fully expect when we're watching well off reach people that we're gonna see. You can feel it when you're watching it. I think we're gonna feel more energy
I hope
this
so.
next week.
Yeah, I hope so.
If we don't, I'd be concerned.
I agree. Wasn't last year this the week they did the open practice in Denver?
I think so. Might have been.
Yeah, because that was, and Coach Prime talked about it last year, how he loved that having,
Hmm.
something else to at least get some fans out. I thought there might be a chance that he might open, a
I,
Folsom
I totally
practice
forgot
on.
about that.
I that's where I thought I
Yeah.
kept waiting for that this year. I thought that was such a cool thing they did down at All City Stadium, but maybe because it's a Friday night, they're not doing. I don't know. I mean, I'm not exactly sure why. Although
Yeah.
with the new turf, I was like, you could just do a free practice to the fans one
Well, that's
morning and
the
just open it
I,
up.
I totally forgot. I'm glad you brought that up because I loved that
That
practice
was
last year,
great.
and I thought what they should have done is started a tradition of once every camp, go to a different area, not too far. You don't want to go to Grand Junction, because
No,
that's too
around
big
the
of a
Denver
trip.
metro. Yeah,
Yeah, or even Northern Colorado. I mean,
sure.
do it at Boulder High School, at Fairview High School, whatever. Do something in Boulder. Go to a Longmont High School. Go to Greeley Central. Go to Thornton High School.
Just mix
So
it up a little bit,
right.
which is what I thought Coach Prime really liked last
Bring
year.
your team out to the community. I thought that was a very cool thing they did last year. And I totally forgot about it, but I wish they would have done that this year. At this point, it's not going to happen.
No,
But I wish they would have done that at least once because I thought that was a cool thing. I think there was 3,000 fans there, something like that, and so it was a cool thing.
and that was what I was saying. I mean, with the turf field, how easy would it be just one day this week to just open
Hmm.
it up to fans and just maybe just
Yeah,
try and get a little bit of juice going? It's they practice early in the morning. It's not like you're going to draw this massive crowd anyway. Parking's
yeah,
not going to be crazy. Just shut down the back lot and say you can't even come in here. Yeah, that's what I would do and just say, hey,
yeah,
But at the same time, I think there's also an element to this where it is a brand new team.
yeah,
And this is the one week they have really the element of surprise. So I think they're, as all college football coaches do, they just, they like
yeah,
to kind of shield the outside world. And I think last year when you had a lot of returners and you knew what to expect, and it was cool last year. The Broncos came out. George Payton, their general manager, was there. David Shaw, former head coach of Stanford, who's in their front office, was there.
yeah,
So that was a lot of fun. I thought we might see that again. I imagine Coach Prime will do something to mix it up or keep something up, the energy level up. But again, this is where last year Cam, Shiloh, you know what I'm
yeah,
saying? You
mhm,
had Shedeur, Travis, all these guys that had been there for so long and been major producers. It's not like Jeremiah Brown's not still there, but it's different.
yeah, yeah,
And so now you're relying on Tawfiq Bayard on the back end and Carter Stoutmeyer in his first real leadership position. So a lot of those voices that you would have relied upon when the going got tough aren't there. And here's an opportunity to continue to build growth and character within this roster.
yeah. That's where I think we're seeing some of that. Jordan Seaton,
Yep.
Caden Salter. I think it looks like he's doing more of that.
The
Preston
leadership tent
Hodge.
poles, those guys got to step up this week.
Yeah,
This week they need them more than they have so far.
yeah,
That's where the voice is real. And I thought
hmm,
Caden Salter with a great pre-practice speech to the team, talking about, hey, you remember when your mom was
hmm,
leaving the house at 6 a.m. These are for those days, right? And
yeah,
those are the voices you need right now.
yeah. Well, it'll be fun to see what happens this next week. And Matt, we'll come back next Saturday and chat about it. We're less than 2 weeks. Well, by the time we do this again, we'll be less than a week away from
It's
a game,
exciting
and we'll recap. Week 4 of camp, and then we'll probably do another one before Georgia Tech. We got to preview that game as well. So
for sure.
more of Matt and I coming up because I know you guys love that. And Matt, we'll see how Dillon Gabriel finishes up this game. And how's he
He's
doing
already
right now?
done. He's already
Done.
done. He
Okay.
exits the game 13 of 18, 143 yards, an interception, and 2 sacks, a rating of 72. He
Okay.
started well, but
And the fumble.
and the fumble.
Yeah.
So two turnovers. Thank you for
Yeah.
reminding me. So, I mean, look, he started well. One of those sacks was definitely not on him. I mean, it was just a jailbreak right away, but
Hmm. Yeah. Perfect timing.
we'll see you next
Matt, we'll
week.
see you next week.